The starship Aurora glided silently through the violet clouds of the Xyler Prime system, its hull reflecting the eerie glow of distant suns. Captain Ethan Cross stood at the viewport, staring at the uncharted planet below. He had been to hundreds of worlds before, but something about Xyler Prime felt different. The atmosphere shimmered with energy that made his skin tingle, and strange auroras danced across the sky even in daylight. This planet was untouched, alive, and full of mystery. "Captain, we're approaching the landing coordinates," said Lieutenant Mara Singh, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. She was young but sharp and had been with Ethan since his first deep space mission. "Sensors indicate a dense settlement in the southern hemisphere." "No signs of humans yet." Ethan nodded, his fingers drumming lightly against the glass. "Good. Let's see who lives there. Remember, Mara, Xyler Prime is uncharted. We don't know their laws, customs, or even biology. We stay careful, respectful, and alert. First contact can be delicate." The shuttle doors opened with a hiss, and the duo descended into the colorful, bustling marketplace of the Elari, the native species of Xyler Prime. Elari were tall, graceful beings with translucent, bioluminescent skin. Their markings glowed with emotion, shifting color as they spoke or moved. The market was alive with vendors selling strange fruits, glowing crystals, and devices that seemed powered by pure energy. The air was thick with smells Ethan could not identify, and every sound, chimes, whistles, and low hums, felt like it was vibrating directly inside his chest. "Stay close," Ethan whispered to Mara. He had read all the research files about the Elari, but nothing could prepare him for the reality. They moved carefully through the crowd, trying not to bump into anyone. But in a sudden moment of chaos, a small child darted past them, knocking into Ethan. He stumbled forward, arms flailing, and accidentally brushed his hand against the shoulder of a woman standing nearby. The woman froze. Her eyes widened, and the bioluminescent markings on her skin flared violently, turning from calm blue to blinding gold. The crowd around them gasped. Ethan stepped back, startled. I'm sorry," he exclaimed. "It was an accident." But the woman, Lyra Solon, did not speak. Her gaze was fixed on him, her body rigid. Around them, whispers spread like fire. An elder approached, his eyes sharp and knowing. "You touched her," the elder said slowly. "Without permission, do you know what that means?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I didn't, I just—" "The law of soul pact," the elder continued, voice low but firm, "declares that any Elari touched without consent may claim the other as their bonded mate. The bond is sacred, it cannot be broken lightly." Ethan's stomach twisted. "Mate, bonded." I didn't know, I didn't mean to." Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. "He touched me without permission. The law, it says I may demand a bond. But I need time to think." Her words were measured, but there was a tension beneath them that Ethan could feel like electricity in the air. The elder nodded solemnly. "Time is granted, but the law must be honored. You human will stay under her supervision until the bond is resolved. Any attempt to escape or interfere will be seen as defiance." Ethan's mind raced. Stay? Supervision. He wasn't in trouble with Earth, but on this planet, he realized, he might as well be a criminal already. "Understood," he said carefully. He could not risk offending the Elari further. "I will stay. I want to do what is right." Lyra's eyes softened slightly, though her markings still glowed with tension. She gestured for him to follow her, leading him through the winding streets of the marketplace to a towering building made of crystal and metal, shimmering like a prism. "This is the Hall of Records," Lyra explained as they entered. "It is also where I live and serve my council. You will remain here under supervision. You will learn our customs. Any attempt to disobey will have consequences, both legal and spiritual." Ethan nodded again. The building was vast inside, with high ceilings that reflected the colors of the planet's skies outside. Strange devices hovered in the air, recording, observing, and analyzing everything. He felt like a tiny human standing in the middle of a cathedral built by beings centuries ahead of him in technology and thought. Over the next hours, Lyra guided him through Elari laws. Ethan learned that the Soul Pact was not a mere formality. It was a binding energy, linking two individuals' emotions and intentions. Those who respected it found harmony and shared abilities. Those who resisted risked physical and mental strain. Ethan listened, absorbing every word. His human mind raced with thoughts. He had traveled to dangerous planets, negotiated with alien races, and survived cosmic storms, but nothing had prepared him for this, being bound by law and custom to someone he barely knew. Lyra observed him silently. She was careful, cautious, but she saw something unexpected. Ethan did not look afraid. He did not show disrespect. He was human, yes, but he had courage, intelligence, and a strange calm in the face of danger. That evening, as the twin moons of Xyler Prime rose, Lyra led Ethan to the top terrace of the Hall of Records. From there, the entire city stretched below them, glowing with energy and light. "You must understand," Lyra said quietly, "the soul pact is not just law. It is responsibility. You will be linked to me in thought, emotion, and action. If you break that bond, if you betray it, consequences will follow for both of us." "I understand," Ethan said. I don't know what this will bring, but I want to do what is right. I respect your people, your laws. I won't run. I won't hurt you." Lyra studied him, her markings shifting from gold to a calm, steady violet. It was a subtle signal, but Ethan felt a slight relief. He had passed some unspoken test. Over the following days, Ethan began learning the daily life of an Elari. He observed the markets, the energy fields that hummed beneath the planet's surface, and the interactions between citizens. He noticed how physical contact, even accidental, could influence emotions and even the environment. A touch could cause plants to bloom, crystals to resonate, or energy to surge. Lyra taught him more than law. She taught him the rituals of respect, the proper way to touch, speak, and move. Ethan struggled at first. His human instincts were clumsy. A misstep could send a crystal shard levitating dangerously or make the air shimmer unpredictably. But slowly he learned. He adapted. He used human creativity to improvise tools to stabilize energy flows. The Elari watching began to notice his potential. He was not just a liability. He was clever, observant, and surprisingly capable. One afternoon, a violent tremor shook the city. Crystals vibrated, buildings swayed, and a low hum filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened in alarm. Ethan immediately took action. Using knowledge from his ship, he stabilized the energy conduits, preventing structural collapse. Lyra watched, astonished. Humans were not supposed to have this attunement. The accidental soul pact, it seemed, had awakened something latent in him, a resonance with the planet's energy fields. For the first time, Lyra felt curiosity beyond law. This human might not just be bound by rules. He might truly be capable of partnership. Not because of the accident, not because of law, but because of choice, courage, and skill. Ethan, unaware of the full extent of the bond, felt a strange connection to Lyra. He did not understand it yet. Sometimes he knew what she was about to say or felt her urgency before she spoke. Other times he felt her anger flare subtly when he hesitated. The soul pact was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but he could sense its pull. Days passed. Ethan and Lyra faced small challenges together. Stabilizing energy fields, negotiating disputes between citizens, and exploring parts of the city where the strange energy was volatile. Each task strengthened their bond, not in romance, but in trust, respect, and shared purpose. One evening, Lyra took Ethan to a quiet garden in the Hall of Records. The air shimmered with bioluminescent pollen, and small floating lights danced above the plants. She turned to him, markings calm and violet. "Ethan," she said softly, "the law says we are bound. But law is not everything. It is choice, courage, and understanding that make a bond meaningful. If you continue to respect my people, my laws, and me, then perhaps the pact will not just be an accident. Perhaps it can become something stronger." Ethan nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. He did not yet know the full potential of this bond or the dangers ahead, but he made a silent promise. "I will not betray your trust. I will not betray this world." As the twin moons rose again, Ethan looked out at the glowing city below. Xyler Prime was alive, unpredictable, and breathtaking. And for the first time in his long career exploring the stars, he realized that survival was not just about skill, weapons, or strategy. It was about honor, courage, and respect, qualities that defined humanity itself. The adventure had only begun. The accidental touch, the soul pact, and the strange resonance that had awakened within him marked the start of something far greater. Ethan did not yet know the trials awaiting him, the enemies he would face, or the secrets Xyler Prime held. But he knew one thing: to survive, and perhaps thrive, he would have to be more than human, he would have to be exceptional. And so, in the heart of an alien world where law, energy, and tradition intertwined, A human and an Elari began a journey that would challenge their limits, reshape their destinies, and test the meaning of courage, trust, and partnership. The first step had been taken, and the galaxy was watching. Ethan woke to the soft hum of Xyler Prime's morning energy fields. Light filtered through the crystalline walls of the Hall of Records, painting the floors in shifting patterns of blue and violet. Beside him, Lyra was already awake, her bioluminescent markings pulsing gently with violet light. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Today we begin training. If you are to remain under the Soul Pact, you must learn not just our laws, but our way of life." Ethan rubbed his eyes, still adjusting to the alien rhythm of this world. "I'm ready," he said. "I want to understand. I want to do what's right." Lyra nodded. "Follow me." She led him through a series of corridors that seemed to bend and shift, reflecting the light in impossible ways. Ethan felt a thrill of awe and trepidation. Every step he took reminded him that he was in a world far beyond his own. Their first lesson took place in the Crystal Gardens, a vast expanse filled with plants that responded to energy. Some flowers glowed when touched, others released a gentle hum when their leaves moved. Ethan quickly realized that even the smallest motion or gesture could affect the environment. A careless step could make vines reach for him, or send light beams scattering unpredictably. Lyra explained the rules carefully. "In this garden, your actions have consequences beyond your understanding. Every touch, every movement carries energy. A simple mistake could trigger a chain reaction. This is why consent is sacred among the Elari. It protects both parties, and it protects the balance of our world." Ethan tried to move cautiously. At first, he stumbled and caused several flowers to flare brightly, their light washing over the area in blinding flashes. Lyra shook her head slightly but did not scold him. She was observing, learning how he adapted. "You are human," she said, "but you must remember, our laws, our energy, and our customs are different. You must think before you act. You must feel before you move." He nodded, focusing. Slowly, he began to anticipate the reactions of the plants and crystals. After several hours of practice, Ethan found himself moving more confidently. He could sense subtle shifts in energy, predicting how the environment would respond. Lyra's markings pulsed a calm green, signaling her approval. As they rested near a crystalline pool, Lyra spoke again. "The Soul Pact is not just law, it is connection. You have already begun to sense it. Your accidental touch awakened a resonance in you. Few humans are capable of this. You may not understand it yet, but your mind and spirit are intertwined with mine." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. The energy was subtle but undeniable. It was as if he could feel her thoughts, her tension, even her curiosity. The idea of being linked to someone, through law or energy, was foreign to him, but he could not deny it. Their training was interrupted by a sudden alarm from the city. Red lights flashed across the crystal towers, and a low, vibrating hum filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened. "The Void Stalkers," she said in a low voice. "They have found us." Ethan's pulse quickened. The Void Stalkers were a rogue faction of Elari who rejected the Soul Pact and sought to overthrow the Council. They were dangerous, cunning, and unpredictable. Lyra grabbed his arm. "Come, we must move quickly." She led him through hidden corridors, descending into the lower levels of the Hall of Records. Ethan marveled at the architecture. Corridors made of translucent crystal, suspended platforms, and energy conduits running like veins through the walls. Every step seemed alive, reacting to their presence. When they reached the city streets, chaos reigned. Void Stalker operatives had infiltrated the marketplace, using energy weapons to disable defenders and spread panic. Citizens fled in confusion, their glowing markings flashing wildly in fear. Ethan's instincts kicked in. "Stay close," Lyra shouted. "We must protect the civilians and stabilize the energy flows." Ethan glanced around. The city's energy conduits were destabilized by the Stalkers' attacks. Without intervention, buildings could collapse, and the energy fields could spiral out of control. He remembered the stabilizing devices in his shuttle and quickly fashioned improvised energy dampeners using materials from nearby market stalls. Lyra watched in astonishment as Ethan worked. Humans were not supposed to have this connection to energy, yet he adapted, improvised, and acted with precision. His movements synchronized subtly with hers, a reflection of the Soul Pact's influence. Together, they managed to stabilize several critical points, preventing collapse. Citizens began to regroup, inspired by their courage. The Void Stalkers, realizing their advantage was slipping, retreated into the alleys, vowing to return. Lyra turned to Ethan, her markings pulsing bright green and blue, signs of relief and admiration. "You are capable," she said quietly, "more capable than I expected." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. "I'm just doing what I can. I don't want anyone to get hurt." Lyra studied him, the golden glow of her markings fading to violet. "You are learning quickly, not just our ways, but our hearts. That is rare among outsiders, rare among humans." In the aftermath, Lyra guided Ethan to a council chamber within the Hall of Records. The elders were already convened, their forms glowing with authority. "Lyra," one elder began, "you have chosen to train this human under the soul pact. We observe carefully. His abilities, his connection are unusual. The bond must be tested further." Lyra nodded. "He has shown courage and respect. He learns quickly, but we must continue the lessons. The city is not yet safe, and the pact is only beginning to awaken his potential." The elders murmured among themselves, impressed. Humans were fragile physically, yet this one showed adaptability, intelligence, and a connection with Elari energy fields that few expected. Over the following days, Ethan's training intensified. He learned to sense fluctuations in energy, predict the reactions of the environment, and interact with citizens respectfully. Lyra guided him, teaching him rituals of consent and respect that were crucial in Elari society. Each exercise reinforced the subtle bond forming between them. One afternoon, Lyra led Ethan to the crystal forests of Calith, a dense region outside the city where energy was raw and untamed. Trees glowed faintly, and vines moved as if alive. The air hummed with power. "This forest is dangerous," Lyra warned. "Your mind and spirit will be tested here. You must focus or risk being overwhelmed by the energy. Many Elari find this place challenging. Few outsiders survive even a short visit." Ethan swallowed hard. The forest seemed to pulse with awareness. Every step he took caused a ripple in the ground, leaves shimmered and shifted unpredictably. At first he stumbled, nearly tripping over glowing roots. Lyra guided him, showing how to move with intention, not haste. Hours passed. Ethan began to sense the subtle rhythms of the forest, predicting reactions before they happened. The soul pact's resonance between him and Lyra made coordination effortless. Together, they moved through dangerous terrain, avoiding unstable energy nodes and hostile creatures drawn to the disturbance. By the evening, they reached a serene clearing, where a waterfall of liquid light cascaded into a luminous pool. Ethan collapsed to the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. "You are improving," Lyra said, her markings glowing softly. "Your connection with me, it grows, not because of law, but because of choice and effort. That is the true power of the soul pact." Ethan looked at her, understanding dawning. "It's not just the law, it's trust, respect, and working together. That's what makes it strong." Lyra nodded. "Exactly, and that is why you survive where others might fail." As night fell over the forest, they camped near the pool. Ethan could feel the subtle pull of the soul pact, guiding his emotions and thoughts to align with Lyra's. It was not overpowering, not controlling, just a gentle resonance, a shared awareness of danger, focus, and intent. For the first time, Ethan understood the depth of the law he had accidentally triggered. It was not punishment or restriction. It was a bridge, a tool, and a challenge. To survive in this world, he had to honor it, embrace it, and learn from it. Lyra watched him silently, her own thoughts a mixture of caution and admiration. This human was unpredictable, but in ways that might benefit their people. Perhaps, she thought, the accidental touch had been fate. Perhaps the bond was meant to test not just the human, but the Elari themselves. The following day brought new challenges. Word of Ethan's abilities and the soul pact had spread throughout the city. Citizens watched curiously, some with awe, others with suspicion. The Void Stalkers had not forgotten them, and small skirmishes erupted at the edges of the city. Ethan and Lyra worked tirelessly, defending civilians, stabilizing energy flows, and tracking the rogue faction. Through each challenge, Ethan's confidence grew. He began to see patterns, anticipate reactions, and even improvise defenses that Lyra had not considered. The subtle bond between them allowed coordination without words, a glance, a gesture, a shared understanding of intent. By the end of the second week, Ethan was no longer just a human under supervision. He was a partner, a problem solver, and a symbol that outsiders could rise to meet the challenges of Xyler Prime. Lyra, once frustrated by his presence, now saw him in a new light. He was not perfect, but he was determined, brave, and capable of growth. And though the soul pact was still a matter of law, something deeper had begun to form. A mutual respect, a partnership built not on accident but on trust and shared purpose. As they looked out over the city from the top of the Hall of Records that evening, Lyra spoke softly. The real test is coming. The Void Stalkers will not give up easily, and the Council will demand proof of your worth. But I believe you are ready. Together we can face whatever comes. Ethan nodded, determination burning in his eyes. Then we face it together. Above them, the twin moons of Xyler Prime glowed softly. The city shimmered with life and energy. And two beings, one human, one Elari, stood ready to confront the dangers ahead, united by law, choice, and the bond of the soul pact. The adventure had grown more dangerous, the stakes higher, and the connection between them deeper. But Ethan understood something essential. Survival on Xyler Prime was no longer just about skill. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to rise beyond the limits of what it meant to be human. And with that understanding, he felt ready for whatever Part 3 of their journey would bring. The council chamber of Xyler Prime was a breathtaking structure, suspended above the city by invisible energy currents. Crystals of every color hung like chandeliers from the ceiling, casting prismatic light across the chamber. Ethan stood beside Lyra, his heart pounding. This was unlike anything he had ever experienced on Earth. He had faced storms, alien wildlife, and hostile civilizations, but this was different. Here, the stakes were political, cultural, and deeply personal. The council elders, tall and radiant with flowing bioluminescent patterns, observed him with measured intensity. Their eyes flickered like the stars above. At the center of the chamber sat High Elder Kale, a figure of authority and wisdom whose presence alone seemed to hum with energy. Ethan Cross, Kale's voice resonated like a low chord through the chamber. You have entered our world and by law been bound to Lyra Solon through the Soul Pact. But the pact is more than law. It is a trial. You must prove your worth, not as a human outsider, but as one capable of upholding its responsibilities. Ethan swallowed, feeling the weight of every eye in the chamber. He nodded. I understand. I will do what I must to honor the pact. Lyra stepped forward. He has shown courage, intelligence, and respect. He has stabilized energy fields, protected citizens, and survived the challenges of the crystal forests. But the council will decide if his actions are sufficient. The elders murmured among themselves, their markings flashing in judgment. Kale gestured, and a series of platforms rose from the chamber floor, each glowing with energy. Your trial will test intellect, strategy, and alignment with the principles of the Soul Pact. Fail in any area and the bond may be deemed invalid. Succeed, and you will be recognized as a partner, not merely by law, but by choice and merit. Ethan followed Lyra onto the first platform. Instantly, the air around him changed. Holographic displays appeared, showing simulations of the city, energy flows, and potential threats. He was tasked with redirecting unstable energy channels, some of which were linked to citizens and structures. Any mistake could collapse a simulated building or endanger simulated lives. He took a deep breath, recalling the lessons from the crystal forests and the Hall of Records. His hands moved quickly, adjusting energy flows, rerouting conduits, and balancing power outputs. Lyra's voice guided him, but more subtly than before, allowing him to think and react. The Soul Pact resonance pulsed softly, giving him intuitive insight into the energy's behavior. Minutes felt like hours, but finally the first simulation stabilized. Lights flickered and the council murmured approval. Ethan exhaled. He had passed the first test, but the next was far more complex. The second platform rose and a virtual battlefield appeared. Citizens were caught between a simulated Void Stalker attack and unstable energy fields. Ethan was required to make split-second decisions: whom to save, which energy flows to stabilize, and how to counter the simulated attackers without causing collateral damage. He acted with a mix of human intuition and newly gained Elari insight. He used tools to shield civilians, created temporary barriers with energy dampeners, and devised traps to immobilize the attackers. Lyra observed silently, her markings a soft violet glow, signaling trust. The Soul Pact allowed their minds to align, so even without speaking, their movements complemented each other perfectly. By the time the simulation ended, Ethan had saved all civilians and neutralized the attackers. The council erupted in low hums of approval, signaling their satisfaction. Ethan could feel a surge of relief, but he knew the final trial would be the most difficult. The last platform rose, revealing a vast, intricate maze. At its center was a crystal chamber containing the heart of Calith, a powerful energy source that maintained the balance of the city. The council explained that the final test was moral as much as practical. Ethan had to navigate the maze, protect the heart, and make choices that would demonstrate his understanding of Elari ethics, responsibility, and empathy. Ethan stepped forward, his pulse steady. Every decision mattered. As he moved through the maze, he encountered scenarios designed to test him. Some were straightforward: a citizen trapped under falling debris, an energy conduit about to overload. Others were morally complex: two citizens in danger, but saving one could endanger the other, or choosing between preserving energy stability or preventing potential long-term harm. Each choice weighed on him. He recalled Lyra's teachings. The pact was not about blind adherence to law, but balance, respect, and empathy. He acted decisively, often improvising solutions, combining human ingenuity with Elari insight. Sometimes he had to trust Lyra's subtle guidance, sometimes rely solely on his own judgment. The maze pulsed with reactive energy, as if testing his intent, measuring the alignment of his actions with the principles of the soul pact. Ethan felt the subtle resonance of the bond guiding him. He did not see it as control. He saw it as connection, a shared understanding that made his decisions clearer and more effective. After what felt like hours, he reached the center of the maze. The heart of Calith shimmered brilliantly, its energy flowing like liquid light. He carefully stabilized the energy, ensuring the balance of the city remained intact. Exhausted but focused, he waited as the council assessed the results. High Elder Kale rose, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Ethan Cross, you have passed the trials of intellect, strategy, and moral responsibility. You have demonstrated not only skill, but understanding, empathy, and courage. You are worthy of the Soul Pact, not merely as a legal requirement, but as a chosen partner. You have proven that humans, though physically different, can rise to the challenges of our world and even exceed expectations." A wave of relief washed over Ethan. The tension that had gripped him for weeks melted, replaced by a quiet pride. Lyra's markings pulsed softly in affirmation. She stepped beside him, her gaze steady, her expression unreadable but thoughtful. "Congratulations," she said quietly. "You are no longer just bound by law. You are recognized by choice, courage, and merit." Even as the council continued their formalities, Ethan felt a shift within him. The Soul Pact was no longer just an accident. It was a connection, a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared experience. And while the trials were over, he knew the real challenges had only just begun. Outside the council chamber, the city was buzzing. Citizens had heard of Ethan's success, and whispers of admiration and curiosity spread through the streets. Some were skeptical, others hopeful. The Void Stalkers had not disappeared. They lurked at the edges, watching, waiting for an opportunity. But for now, peace had been restored. Lyra led Ethan to the balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons of Xyler Prime hung low, casting a soft glow. Below, the streets shimmered with energy, alive with the pulse of the citizens' emotions and the delicate balance of the city's power. "You have done well," Lyra said softly, "but your journey is far from over. The Void Stalkers are a persistent threat, and the Council will call on you again. Your bond with me is a beginning, but it must be tested further in the real world, not just in trials." Ethan nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "I understand. I will face whatever comes, not because of law, but because it is right, and because I trust you." Lyra's markings glowed faintly, the subtle warmth of her approval touching him. "And this is the essence of the pact. It is not merely law, but choice, trust, and shared purpose." As night fell, Ethan and Lyra patrolled the city together. They observed minor disturbances, citizens in need, and signs of the Void Stalkers plotting. Each situation tested their coordination, and with each success, their bond strengthened. They communicated not just with words, but with subtle gestures, shared intuition, and mutual understanding, a synergy that impressed even seasoned Elari observers. During a quiet moment, Lyra led him to the Hall of Reflections, a place where the city's energy converged into a calm, mirror-like pool. Here, Ethan could sense the full resonance of the soul pact. He felt a deep connection not just to Lyra but to Xyler Prime itself, the energy, the people, and the delicate balance of life. This place, it shows the true nature of the pact, Lyra explained. It is not binding in a way that restricts you, it guides you, it teaches you. It makes you part of something larger than yourself, and now you are part of it. Ethan gazed into the pool, seeing reflections of himself, Lyra, and the city, all intertwined in shimmering light. For the first time, he understood that the pact was not a punishment, nor a mere law, it was an opportunity. An opportunity to grow, to protect, and to rise beyond the ordinary limitations of humanity. The night passed, and dawn came with its pale, glowing light. The city stirred once more, alive with energy, and Ethan felt ready. He had passed the trials, but he knew the real test awaited. Facing the void stalkers in the field, navigating the dangers of Xyler Prime, and proving that a human and an Ilari could truly be partners in purpose, courage, and destiny. And so, with the bond between them deepening, Ethan and Lyra prepared for the challenges ahead. They were no longer just a human and an Ilari. They were a team, bound by law, strengthened by choice, and united by the growing trust and respect that would carry them through the trials of Xyler Prime. The adventure was far from over, but for the first time, Ethan felt a sense of belonging, not just on this planet, but within a bond that transcended law, culture, and species. The Soul Pact had begun as an accident, but it had grown into something far greater, a partnership capable of facing any threat the galaxy could send. Dawn broke over Xyler Prime, casting a soft violet light across the city. The twin moons lingered faintly on the horizon, their glow mixing with the radiant colors of the crystalline towers. Ethan stood at the top of the Hall of Records, gazing out across the city he had grown to care for. Lyra joined him silently, her markings pulsing softly with violet and green, a sign of calm focus and readiness. "They are coming," Lyra said quietly, her eyes narrowing. "The Void Stalkers will not wait. They know we survived their last attempt, and now they will strike hard." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we fight. We protect the city and its people, together." Lyra nodded. "Together." The warning came moments later, a low, vibrating hum from the city's energy conduits. Red alarms lit up the towers. From the horizon, the Void Stalkers advanced in waves, riding sleek energy craft and wielding weapons that disrupted the city's delicate energy flows. Panic erupted among the citizens as the rogue faction moved in with precision and ferocity. Ethan and Lyra moved quickly. "We need to stabilize the central conduits," Lyra shouted. "If they collapse, the city will fall." Ethan sprinted alongside her, drawing upon the resonance of the Soul Pact. He could feel her focus, her intention, and his own mind synchronized with hers. Together, they manipulated the energy flows, using improvised shields, conduits, and protective barriers to safeguard civilians and structures. Each movement, each adjustment was coordinated without words. Their connection went beyond law or ritual. It was instinctive. The first wave of attackers hit the central plaza. Ethan used his human ingenuity to create energy dampeners, converting the stalkers' attacks into harmless bursts that illuminated the plaza like fireworks. Lyra unleashed controlled pulses of energy from her hands, stunning enemies and protecting bystanders. "Keep moving," she yelled. "They are trying to isolate the heart of Calith." Ethan's heart raced. The heart of Calith, the city's energy core, was vulnerable. If the stalkers reached it, the city could collapse in minutes. He scanned the surroundings and noticed weak points in the attackers' formation. With a quick motion, he diverted a segment of energy to create a barrier that cut off their advance. The stalkers faltered, giving Lyra an opening to strike. They fought with precision and teamwork. Ethan's human adaptability surprised Lyra repeatedly. He improvised traps from city debris, rerouted energy flows to amplify defensive fields, and even predicted the stalkers' maneuvers using patterns he recognized from their previous ambush. Lyra's trust in him grew with each move, but the battle was far from over. A massive energy pulse from the stalkers destabilized the northern district, sending buildings and energy crystals into chaotic motion. Civilians were trapped. Ethan and Lyra split briefly to handle multiple emergencies. The resonance between them allowed coordination even at a distance. Without speaking, they knew what the other was doing, guiding their actions instinctively. Hours passed, the city's energy fields pulsating wildly with the intensity of the battle. The Void Stalkers were relentless, yet Ethan and Lyra were unwavering. Each attack they countered, each citizen they saved, strengthened the bond between them. It was no longer just the soul pact. It was a partnership built on trust, courage, and shared purpose. In the midst of the battle, Ethan noticed a stalker approaching the heart of Calith itself, a surge of destructive energy in their hands. Without hesitation, he ran, using a combination of physical agility and energy manipulation to intercept them. Lyra arrived simultaneously, and together they neutralized the threat. The stalker was driven back, disarmed, and fled with the others. The central plaza fell silent for a brief moment. The citizens, who had been hiding or fighting, emerged cautiously, watching as Ethan and Lyra stood together, glowing softly with the energy of the city. The threat was not fully gone, but the immediate danger had been repelled. High Elder Kale appeared, his presence commanding. "Ethan Cross," he said, voice echoing across the plaza, "you have faced the full challenge of Xyler Prime. Not only have you survived, but you have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and understanding far beyond what was expected. You have protected our people and upheld the soul pact in action, not just in law." Ethan exhaled, exhausted but proud. "I only did what was necessary. I didn't want anyone to be hurt." Lyra stepped beside him, her gaze steady. "You did more than that. You proved that a human can rise to meet the challenges of our world, that courage, intelligence, and heart are not limited by species. You are no longer merely bound to me by law. You are my partner, by choice, by trust, and by shared experience." The citizens began to cheer, a low hum rising through the plaza, growing into a chorus of admiration and relief. Ethan felt a deep warmth in his chest. He had come to Xyler Prime as an outsider, unaware of its customs, its dangers, and its laws. Now he was not only a survivor but a hero recognized by an entire civilization. But the adventure was not yet over. Even as the last of the Void Stalkers retreated beyond the city limits, Ethan knew they would return. Xyler Prime was vast, and threats lurked both within and beyond its borders. He had passed the trials, survived the dangers, and proven himself, but every day ahead would bring new challenges. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her markings pulsing with calm determination. "The Council will formalize the recognition of the pact," she said. "But the real journey begins now. Together we must continue to protect Xyler Prime and guide its people." Ethan nodded. "Together," he repeated, feeling the weight of the words and the truth behind them. This was no longer about law or obligation. It was about responsibility, courage, and the bond they had forged through trials and trust. In the days that followed, the city began to recover. Citizens rebuilt structures, stabilized energy flows, and repaired the damages caused by the Void Stalkers. Ethan and Lyra continued their patrols, training, and strategic planning. The Council formally recognized Ethan as Lyra's bonded partner, a title of honor rather than mere legality. It symbolized a union of purpose, intellect, and courage, human and Elari working as one. As the city regained its rhythm, Ethan took a moment to reflect. The soul pact, which had begun as an accidental touch, had transformed into something far greater. It was a bridge between species, a source of mutual growth, and a test of human potential. He had risen to meet the challenges of an alien world, proving that adaptability, courage, and morality were universal strengths. Lyra joined him on the balcony one evening, overlooking the restored city. The twin moons of Xyler Prime hung low, their light reflecting in the crystal towers. Citizens moved through the streets, their markings glowing softly, their energy calm and harmonious. "You have changed more than I expected," Lyra said, her voice quiet but sincere. "Not just in skill or knowledge, but in spirit. You understand our world, and more importantly, you understand the bond between us." Ethan smiled faintly. "I learned from you, and from the people of this city, from facing the trials, the battles, and the energy itself. I've grown because I had no choice but to rise to the challenge." Lyra's markings shimmered with approval. "And that is what makes a human remarkable: courage, adaptability, and the willingness to act rightly even when everything is uncertain. You are more than law requires. You are a true partner." The nights passed peacefully for the first time in weeks. Ethan and Lyra worked together to strengthen the city's defenses, mentor citizens in energy control, and prepare for future threats. The Void Stalkers still lurked, but their threat had diminished. and their attacks were met with the combined ingenuity and courage of the city's defenders. Through every challenge, Ethan felt the resonance of the soul pact guiding him. He and Lyra could anticipate each other's movements, communicate through subtle gestures, and act with a shared understanding that went beyond language. The bond was no longer a mere obligation. It was a partnership rooted in respect, trust, and shared purpose. One evening, as the twin moons reflected off the crystal towers, Ethan and Lyra stood together at the edge of the Hall of Records, looking out over the city. The lights shimmered like living stars, and the air hummed with calm energy. "We've come far," Ethan said softly. "From an accidental touch to this partnership, I never imagined it would lead to something like this." Lyra looked at him, her markings pulsing with gentle light. "Neither did I, but perhaps that is the point of the pact. It tests, challenges, and shapes us. It was never just law, it was opportunity, and together we have made the most of it." Ethan nodded, feeling a profound sense of belonging. Xyler Prime was no longer a strange, alien world. It was home in a sense he had never known. And through courage, trust, and respect, he had proven that humans could rise to meet even the most alien challenges. The city was safe for now. The council had recognized him. The Void Stalkers had been repelled. And above all, he had formed a bond that transcended law, a partnership forged in trials, strengthened by courage, and solidified by trust. Ethan turned to Lyra. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Lyra's markings pulsed in agreement. Together. And so, as the first light of a new day touched the towers of Xyler Prime, a human and an Ilari stood side by side, ready to face the unknown. The soul pact, once a law, had become a symbol of unity, courage, and the extraordinary potential of humans. Ethan had started as an outsider, bound by accident. Now he was a hero, a partner, and a defender of a world far beyond his own, a testament to what humans could achieve when guided by trust, wisdom, and bravery. The adventure of Xyler Prime had reached its immediate conclusion, but the story of Ethan and Lyra was far from over. Together, they would confront future threats, explore deeper mysteries, and continue to prove that courage, intelligence, and morality were strengths that transcended species, law, and even the vastness of the galaxy. And in the quiet glow of the Crystal City, their bond, born of accident, nurtured by trials, and solidified by trust, stood as a shining example of what humanity could achieve, not just survival, but excellence in the face of the unknown.